I have finally gotten around to playing Pokemon Gale of Darkness XD, and this is a game I have wanted to play for the longest time, but due to not wanting to make stupid financial decisions, I never got that chance, until now. And oh my god, is this game fun, but oh my god, it took ages and kinda soul-sucking at some point. This game is a follow-up to the Pokemon Colosseum game, and honestly, these games should get more recognition than they do, ignoring the fact that it got covered by Jaden Animations and M&J TV doing a reaction on Jaden Animation. But anyway, sit back, relax, and let's go over my first adventure through Pokemon Gale of Darkness XD. The story begins with us seeing a ship sailing in the middle of the sea, with suddenly attack helicopters appearing everywhere and with Shadow Lugia in tow, as it uses its built-in tractor beam to lift the ship away and leave its entire crew of 2 people in the middle of the sea. Because yeah, that makes sense. However, we suddenly cut to me being in the middle of the battle where I managed to win easily, only to discover that was virtual reality and I only have a dang Eevee. With testing now done, I got sent to the professor's office where I got praised for my hard work, only for my mother to tell him not to praise me. Like, damn, does my mother not like me or something? And to be honest, this concern kind of grew after she didn't know where my little sister Joby was. So I got sent looking for her, and with some aimless wandering, I managed to find out she went to some scientist's house. And upon finding her, I discovered that this child was super annoying. Not even a minute of talking to her, and I would punt this child straight to the moon. I managed to eventually drag the annoying brat back home and meet up with the professor again, where he asked me to help him to test out a machine he made, the Snag machine. A machine he created to help capture Shadow Pokemon. Shadow Pokemon are Pokemon that have been abused and neglected by people so much that they actually sealed off their hearts. But just as I equipped the Snag machine, the lab suddenly got broken into by a group called Team Cypher, who had come to kidnap the professor. So I battled one of the grunts and got introduced to my first ever Shadow Pokemon, where I learned Shadow Pokemon have a special Shadow type that are super effective against everything. So that could be a headache later on. However, right now, I was able to catch the Shadow Pokemon, but not have enough time to save the professor who was getting shoved in a trunk of a car and then taken away. Oh good god, they showed kidnapping. With the professor now taken and the Shadow Pokemon on the return, the lab team decided they were going to finish a purification machine that would help Shadow Pokemon, based on a purification stone that already exists. Wait, why are we making this if something like this already exists? Nope, no one else is asking? Okay then, bugger me! The team ended up sending me to a seaside town to get some of the parts from a mechanic, and Joby tagged along because they believed I couldn't handle the job on my own for some reason. However, Joby ended up causing more issues by bumping into a very big, very manly Zook. And honestly, I was terrified we may die. Thankfully, an old man and his henchmen saved us, but I'll be honest, whenever this guy talks, or I just see him, I hear and see Weevil Underwood from Yu-Gi-Oh! And his name being Greevil doesn't help that. But anyway, we grabbed the parts, got back to the lab, only for my mom to send us to a town that has its own purification stone. So I'm just gonna ask this: why are we making a machine to purify Shadow Pokemon?
This is kind of a time to send when that
purify my Pokemon.
What about the professor?
Where's
How are we
Dad
getting
gone,
him
by the
back?
way? Do you even love us? Mom? Mom? Hello? Alright then, off to the village for me, I guess. Now left with that confusion, I made my way to the village where I met the village chief, who had me go through a lot of trial battles to help the Shadow Pokemon open its heart to me. And after a while, it did, and ended up getting all of its normal moves back and leveling up a bit. With my Shadow Pokemon now purified, the village elder told me that he had received information on where the professor had been taken, to a random ass lab in the middle of the desert. When I got to the given codes of the lab, I met with what looked to be budget Power Rangers that could not do basic counting. I had to battle through them and took some of their Shadow Pokemon on that I think would work well on the team, and then bust into the lab to end up in a never-ending swarm of Cypher agents. Like, oh my god, this took forever. Every time I was done with one grunt, another appeared within like a minute. I never felt so drained of battling in my life, to a point where after this, I took days off just because I was so tired from the battles and just didn't want to throw myself right back into it. And although it took a while, I finally got all the way through the grunts and the admins to finally find the professor. And during the breakout, I found a random data ROM that, just how inconvenient, holds the plans to everything. plot convenience. Once we got back to the lab, it turns out the team finally finished the purification machine, and to be honest, I didn't understand how the hell to use this thing. I thought I needed to purify a Pokemon before moving on, so I ended up just messing around with the thing for like 20 minutes until I realized I could just walk out the front door to trigger the next part of the story. To understand what was on the data-ROM I picked up, the professor sent me to Pyrite Town to talk to a guy named Dante, and with some aimless wandering and a quick Google search later, I managed to find Dante and give him the ROM, where he asked for some time to go through it. I ended up doing a whole ass side story whilst waiting and figuring out how to catch wild Pokemon, which was boring, but also met Mirror B, who has some of the best music in my opinion. After that encounter, I made my way back to check on Dante to find out his whole place had been taken over by Team Cypher. So I had to battle through another mountain of grunts, and to get all the way up to the top, where Dante had already handed over the ROM thinking it was okay because he had made a copy. But for once, the evil team was one step ahead and had already deleted the copy. So I disposed of the last of the grunts, and then Dante managed to remember a small bit of the ROM's data. Team Cypher was actually behind the attack on the SS Libera, and were also planning to attack a nearby town. So I had to race on over to warn the mayor of that town. At least I would have, but this lady at the front gate stopped me and sent me to a casino instead. What the fuck is this game, man? But I quickly made my way back to the town, got into the mayor's office to find he had left a note trying to warn the town's gym leader about the attacks, so it seems I was all too late. I just didn't realize how late I was, with the whole town being taken over by Team Cypher. I thought these guys were like Team Skull level smart, but now they're just making all the other teams look like amateurs. Once again, having to battle all of the Team Cypher grunts, which took about 2 hours with the longest battles, and doing more Google searches to know where the hell I'm going, I managed to find the mastermind behind the whole thing, and completely bonked his team on the head, and freed the townspeople who were hidden under the gym. Apparently the reason the town was attacked was because the townspeople were seeing shady people coming and going from the desert, to which I ask, why is everyone just in the desert? It seems really unlikely for this many people to just be wandering in the desert to find very important locations. Ah, yeah, that makes sense. But getting to the ship's site would present more challenges. My scooter was getting stuck in the sand. And now, I thought this would be a simple thing of getting the scooter upgraded, but oh no. That would be too simple. What happened next just confused the crap out of me, and here is what happened. I went back to Pyrite Town where the guys had sent me to the mechanic shop to get the parts in order to upgrade the scooter. However, the mechanic that could do the upgrade was located at the science house where I picked up Jovi. So on entering, one of the science nerds tried to stop me, and I simply stomped his team into the ground. He then responded by activating a Mecha Groudon suit, and then his team suddenly got better within 2 minutes, but I still stomped on him anyway. I swung on some hooks, got the mechanic back to his shop, and finally got the scooter upgraded to a hover scooter. You wanna know how long all that took? 2 hours! Just to upgrade a scooter! My life is being taken by this game. Help me. Finally, however, I got to the abandoned ship where I had to fight off some Team Cypher grunts, and with a bit more exploring, I got ambushed. And chloroformed. Are we sure this is still a Pokemon game? Anyway, I woke up with those guys having snagged my snag machine and learned that they did it and their team was called Team Snag'em. Yes, that was complicated for me to say, but I did it. And then, to find them, I had to do a long-ass side mission to figure out where their base was. So even more soul-sucking battles later, I finally got to the boss who couldn't even wear the damn machine because he was too big and buff as a man. And with an easy battle of putting his team back into the ground, I got my snag machine back, and even earned his trust and got him to get me past some guards by chloroforming them. Yippee! Chloroform me! Now, the main base is where I learned they made shadow Pokemon, so of course, I had to destroy it by overloading a generator and defeating the boss of the base. And now, with all that, Team Cypher has now been defeated. Greevil Underwood! So it turns out Greevil Underwood was the mastermind of Team Cypher and had challenged me to come to his headquarters so I could battle him and his unpurifiable Pokemon he had created. Meaning I had to take a very conveniently made Kyogre speedboat and made my way over to the island where, oh my lord, there were just so many battles and many goddamn floors. And I barely survived all of that. and I got thrown into a battle against this guy who I don't remember his name, and I lost. Meaning I got sent all the way back down to the bottom. Son of a bitch! Having gotten back up and defeated, I want to say Steve? And other characters whose names I cannot remember, I finally made it to face off against the leader of Team Cypher, Greevil Underwood, and his shadow Pokemon Lugia, where I simply threw a Master Ball at it and leave it at that. But no, yeah, the real challenge was actually in his actual battle with Greevil, as his Pokemon were all shadow Pokemon. And even when I got all the way down to his last Pokemon, I sadly lost. But then got a cheeky idea. Simply putting Shadow Lugia on my team and then using its bulkiness to heal stall for the team and then use its Shadow move Shadow Down to lower all the opponent's defenses and then use Ursaring's return to spam kill them. And even when Ursaring died, Breloom just sort of finished the fight with Headbutt. Greevil's son once tried to convince him to blow up the island with me still on it to stop me, but thankfully the other managed to talk him out of it and then tried to have this whole father-son moment, which I didn't care about. I just ruined this whole man's plan and using his perfect shadow Pokemon in the cheekiest way possible. Like, come on, you can't buy that sort of comedy. And with that, I finally beat Pokemon Gale of Darkness XD. This game was a lot of fun to play because it was just a really different experience to what the normal Pokemon games were. But I kind of have to admit, the battles took forever and had some goofy animations sometimes, which made me really concerned. But considering the time this game was made and what it provides, it was definitely worth it. I'd 100% play this game again, maybe randomized, maybe for a different video. I don't know. If someone gives me an idea, I'll happily do it. Until then, guys, I'll see you all in the next adventure.